Hello and welcome to On the Brighter Side. I'm your host, Monica Tanner, and I'm really excited about this new series we're calling Conversations with Interracial Couples. And I am so grateful to Sandra and Ryan Tanner for volunteering to be our first couple. This is going to be an incredible episode. Ryan and Sandra Tanner have been married for almost 8 years, and they live in North Metro Atlanta with their 3 children, ages 17, 14, and 7. So welcome to the show, you guys. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Definitely. This is looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, why don't you start by telling us the story about how you met and fell in love?
There's a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
so do you want to go or do me to go?
No, you always tell the story better than I do.
So the part 1 is we actually grew up together in Savannah, Georgia. Both of our families went to the same church, and we met in youth group there. And we were friends. I had a crush on him, about all as far as it got. And then I ended up moving to Atlanta, and he stayed there. Anyways, life happened. He got married, and then I got married, and then we had no contact with each other. And then my first husband passed away, and me and my oldest two, we ended up moving back to Savannah. And then that's when I started going back to the same church that we grew up in. He still went to that same church, and it was just like an instant, like, I don't know, like he was divorced from his marriage, and I had my 2 children and going through some things. So it's like we had this like connection. We didn't start dating or anything right away. We just became friends, and my children loved him. And then from there, like it wasn't very long after that though that we just knew, like we.
So there's 2 parts.
That was my version.
So my version is,
Yeah.
I kind of say that she came to get me from Savannah, is what I say. So my dad had passed away not long before she came down, and I remember I was sitting at my desk in a room, and I was on Facebook, and just kind of looking around, and she sent me a message, and in the message she was asking a lot. Of course, I had a lot of people that were reaching out to me, of course, giving their condolences and all that stuff, and of course that was, we were working through that process.
Because I loved his dad. Like our families were really, really close.
Yeah. So she reached out to me, and she had the one message that came across that was different than every other message that I got. So we just started talking from there. I told her what was going on. Basically, the conversation just picked up from there. Found out that she was coming from Atlanta to Savannah. And then from there, we just kind of did, phone conversations like we were teenagers again. And then
hours on the phone.
Yeah, hours on the phone, and just not talking about any of the things, because we were both still kind of going through a lot of the wounds, I guess that you call them. But we were going through that, so we didn't talk on that. We just really spoke on the current and the more so focused on the future of just different things that we wanted to do. And then and we made it to this relationship, so we're now almost 8 years in. So
yeah, well, the funny thing is, in between that time, after the stuff with Chase and Cameron's father happened, I went through this thing to where I was praying, my God, just send me someone that would love my children as his own, because I had step parents. I love my step parents, but I always felt separated. I never felt like I was a part of the family. I always felt like the stepchild, you know what I mean? And I did not want that for my kids, especially since they didn't have a dad at that time. Like that was so important to me, that they would feel a part of the family. And this is a story that I told the other day, and actually with everything that's happening right now with racism and everything, I connected the two, and I'm like, this is just how God works. Like God knows things that we don't, right? And so he cares so much about all the small details. And then that's what I was telling someone. I feel like God gave me Ryan. And if you're around Ryan and I, you would never know that those are not his children, because he loves those children, and like everyone thinks they're his children, right? And so, and I was telling someone this the other day, I feel like God did that for a reason, because I get a lot of questions like, you only date Black men, because my first husband was Black. So I'm like, that's not true. That's not what I'm intentionally trying to do. But I do feel like God gave me Ryan because they would feel apart, and they would not feel like they didn't belong. You know what I mean? And we had a child together. And so, and now it's not like there's any sort of a feel of a separation at all. So I feel like God gave me Ryan because he knew by being a Black man, that the kids would still feel, I don't know if that makes sense, if I'm saying it the right way, but I just, that's one of the things, even now looking at all of this stuff that's happening now, I'm just like, God gave me what I prayed for.
That's beautiful. I love that so much. So tell me what the best marriage advice you ever received is.
I actually thought about this. So the best marriage, I didn't receive this, but I remember hearing a buddy of mine got married, and I watched him as so he was already married, and he told them to put their hands up like they were want to, spar with each other. Basically, like told them to focus in on that anger, like they were mad at each other. And then he took them both, or his wife grabbed the new wife's hand, and then he grabbed the husband's hand, and then he turned them around and put their backs to each other and said, always remember, you're never going to be fighting each other, but you're going to be fighting all the other things that are going to try to come in and separate you guys apart. And yeah, and that stuck with me. He's probably well over 10 years ago that I remember him telling him that, and that stuck with me ever since then. So
that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've heard that.
Yeah, I was holding on to that one. Yeah.
I think my advice that someone told me, actually wrote an article about it, but it was about always showing your husband respect. That's the one thing that they need more than like anything is to feel respected by their spouse, by their wife.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge part.
I love it. Okay, this question is for Sandra. Tell us your story and the prayer you had for your new husband.
Yes, there's one thing I prayed about, but there's another thing that I was like, whenever I get remarried, to pray for someone to love my kids as his own. And then the other thing, remember what I told you? That I wanted my new husband to have a motorcycle. But no, that was my prayer. So I think I talked about that story. I actually like combined the two together, but yeah, that was my prayer.
Beautiful. I love it. That is in the details for sure. Okay. So did you have any experience with racism as a young married couple?
I don't want to title it racism, but there is something where you see, there's certain energies people put off. So there's certain things that there's a certain vibe you get. And we've been places before. And I'd say, honestly, it was one of those things where we knew it existed, but I personally didn't experience anything when we were together. I would more so get the looks from, people of my own skin color. So it's like I would get those. I never really had anyone come to me and ask me any other questions or just blatantly show a face of racism. It was just more so looking at the looks that we would get. So yeah. I think she may have been a little bit different on her end, but
I think there's again two sides to it. Growing up in Savannah, I definitely had a lot of that. Being married in Savannah, I felt like there were a lot of stares and looks, but you have to understand, like from where I stand as a white woman married to a Black man, there's a lot of stereotypes that even go with that, right? There's a stereotype that I feel like I'm someone I'm not. I'm trying to be Black and I'm not. And I fought this a lot. Like I'm almost 40, so I'm past this now. But in the beginning, I tried so hard to fight those stereotypes, right? And just a few of them, I'm not going to say them all, but, like the way that I talk couldn't be a certain way, or people thought I was trying to, act like something I wasn't. So there was a lot of stereotypes I was aware of. And then I felt like people kind of looked down on me, like I wasn't as good as they were, or trash or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I really felt those things. I really cared too much about them. And plus in my first marriage and my second marriage, two totally night and day situations. The first marriage, it was definitely a sense of, I don't know how to explain it. I know it might be a question that you come up with in a minute, but it was definitely this thing of, you're too white, or the kids are acting too white. They're not Black enough. You know what I mean? There was always this struggle of trying to be who I was, you know what I mean? Without putting too much thought into it. So all in my 30s, I really became comfortable with who I was, and I know that I don't think I'm someone who I'm not, and I'm comfortable in myself, and I do see people staring, and people do make comments, and they respond to me differently when I'm by myself, and then when he walks into the room, it's like this, oh, you know what I mean? Like there's this feeling, you know what I mean? No one's been outright rude, but it's definitely a difference. And I think what he's always asking me is like, oh, those people were staring, is And I don't look for that anymore, because I dealt with it so much in the first half of my life, to where like I would always like be so self-conscious, right, about people staring, or what people were thinking, or what people were going to do. And so I blocked that out. And so when we go into public places, I intentionally try not to see that stuff. I try not to look. I try not to, even when people, I do see that, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, they're not being negative. They're not doing, they're not doing it to be rude. Yeah, I try not to do that, because I really got stuck in that place a while ago, a long time ago. But I'm not that way anymore, because, I'm almost 40, and with age, you learn some things.
Yeah, with me, I think it's more so like so me being attentive to what's happening around me is just part of my nature too. And you can ask her or any closest to me. I'm always the person that's paying attention. I can tell you every small detail that's happening around me, but I'm not necessarily saying anything about it. So I'm always aware of what's happening around me. So to see like whether it could be something that's racial or whatever. And I would say honestly, since the question is, early in our marriage, we would see that, and we at times we still kind of see that when we're by ourselves. Now we just, because our kids are older, we have a lot of people who actually will stare at us because our kids have red hair. So it's like now it's like to see all three kids have red hair, like okay, that's something that we don't see all the time. So
Yeah.
that generates its own conversation. So but I don't go into it or look for anything in particular. It's just one of those things where, like I say, it's a vibe. It's a certain energy you get, or people looking at you and wondering why you two are together, or why are you over there with her, or why is she over there with you? So you get those, but other than that, I don't think racism has ever come in and shown its face the way that it's starting to show up right now, and that's just on my experience with us.
The second half I was saying, and I forgot because I ramble, but so now the Atlanta life, right? So when we moved to Atlanta, it was kind of refreshing because so diverse, right? So many different people, and we love going to the city, and we live 40 minutes north of the city. We like going into the city, and just because we just feel like we belong, right? There's a lot of unfortunate stuff that's going on right now, and it's very sad to watch. And actually, the day after when all of the looting and the riots and the protesting started last month, Atlanta, like that first night when Atlanta just was tore up, like our family went and volunteered to help clean it up, because I was watching and I'm like, oh, this is not Atlanta. Like, this is not what we do. People just accept everyone no matter what their color is. I feel like right now in our life, because we lived initially like 20 minutes north, and then in a town called Kennesaw, which is still very diverse, and we loved it. But then about a year ago, we moved our family north of that, and we're actually moving back because we've have experience, and I feel like it's the first time in our kids' life that they feel like they don't belong, and they feel singled out, and because it's a predominantly white community, and so they did not have good experiences with the schools. They were made fun of. We felt it, and it was the first time, like even going out to eat, but I remember going into a restaurant, and this is when it was like it drew the line. We walked into a restaurant and everyone stopped and turned around and was just staring at us, and it was the first time like even our kids felt uncomfortable and they wanted to go home. They were like, I don't want to be here right now. And so we've had to make some changes and decisions over the past couple of months to move back to where, and we can't hide racism. That's not what we're doing, and we can't keep them from it. But to go from a place to where you're accepted and you're seen as just being a person to being singled out, it's not how I want to raise our kid. You know what I mean? And so we're actually in a transition right now because of all of that.
Yeah. I want to skip ahead just a little bit and ask you, how do you talk to your children at different ages about racism and about what's going on in the world right now?
So the oldest he'll be 18 this year. So I had conversations with him, and I told Sandy that I was going to have conversations with him just as far as just being a black male. Some of it's about being a black male, and some of it is just about being a male, period. When you reach a certain size, you can be 15 years old, but when you're a certain size, anyone who doesn't know you will think, because now kids are growing up so fast, and we get kids that are 14, 15 with beards and mustache and stuff like that. So you see them and you're like, hey, is that a male, or is that a man, or is that just like a young kid? And so when he started getting up in age, he's pretty tall. He's got a little hair on his face, tall. And this was actually 3 years ago. And I would talk to him and say, hey, look, these are some of the things I just need you to be mindful of. And it's not that you're going to be singled out, but the probability that you could be. I just want you to understand that. And to have conversations like that with my kid, or one, it's good because you're preparing him. If he's not worried about anything, if I'm not worried about anything, it's something where you want to prepare him. But for the other side, just to have to add on to a layer of say, hey, son, because you're a black male, you just want to be more careful. You're not going to be looked at times as an equal person per se, and you don't know what the other person sees. You just want to like kill any idea that you could necessarily be a threat if you're really not. And so I would have those conversations with him. With Cameron and Braden, they're still young. So, with Braden, he's 7. So I kind of work with him a little bit, and help him to understand. He does see, of course, he sees color. He sees that, mom's lighter than dad is. And,
remember we had to have our first conversation with him in kindergarten.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so this
right.
was a funny story. And then you can get back to what you're saying. Braden is now 7, but I got a phone call from his teacher. So I took Braden to his open house, right, to the meet and greet or whatever. A couple of weeks into school, I get a phone call saying that we needed to talk to our children about racism, and that God loves everyone and everyone is created equal no matter what skin color they are, right? Because a little boy was very upset and told his mom that Braden said he looked like chocolate. And so I got a phone call because the mom was very upset.
But again, when you see, if you were to see him, he reminds me of the little kid. Like, so you've got kids. So the little kid that's on Incredibles, the youngest one, the baby, I think is Jack. Yeah. So I used to call him Jack because that's how he looked. He was like super fair skin, freckles, and just hair. Like his hair is not like my hair. So of course, like when you see him, you would think he's not biracial. So I guess the parents took it as that, but not understanding that Braden is biracial. And it's just like,
well, then there was a parent-teacher conference the next week, so I never said anything. I was like, yes, we will. But it did open up a conversation, a reason for us to have a conversation with him. So I was thankful for that. But then I was like, you're going with me to the parent-teacher conference, by the way. And so we both walked in, and you could just see her
yeah, he just threw her off.
Just the look on her was epic. But so that we actually had our first conversation with him in kindergarten. But what I would tell parents, honestly, and I had a conversation with a friend the other day because she was like, when do I do it? She's a white lady with white children. And she was telling me that, her kids don't see color. I'm like, well, kids see color. They do. It's natural to see color. And it's not a bad thing. Yeah. It's not a bad thing for kids to see color. When kids learn their colors, like you're either peach or you're brown, right? In school, like that's when, that's a good time to start talking about differences because they're going to start associating at that point people being different color. Unfortunately, this school year, since we were in a different school, and I don't know if Ryan picked up on this, but I picked up on this because Braden was the only biracial kid in his class. He started looking at Ryan very differently. He started kind of coming home, and Braden's not like this, so I don't want to paint him in a bad picture, but this is why people need to talk about racism, saying that, that he doesn't want to be brown like daddy, and it was the first time because I feel like it's the area that we live in. It's not like people are mean, but they're not open and they don't see it, and the kids don't see it. So the kids will point out the differences really fast, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does. It's one of those things, again, it's the biggest thing that I think you can actually give a kid, and you think about adults, is one of the biggest things you can do is give people exposure. Exposure, I think, has been one of the biggest things for my life because just how I grew up. So our family now is multicultural. My family back then was biracial. Both of my parents are black, but my dad remarried, so everything changed after that. But I can still go around. I've always been one to, number one, show respect to other people. And so when I would see just any other background that I didn't necessarily understand, it was still, number one, respect, but just to understand the cultural differences. So when you can have your kids understand cultural differences and just understand like the whole world is we're all pulling from different cultures to be able to build anything. And when you do that, it's just one of those things like, hey, look, the person doesn't have to look like you because, you want to have people that don't necessarily look like you or don't necessarily think like you. As long as it's moral and ethical, they don't think like you, then they'll challenge you. And so when we lead at it from that way, and not just talk about, hey, let's just focus on race, but let's also talk about race and just the differences in people, and then try to understand, lead with respect first. And if you lead with respect, you're not necessarily giving room to have to deal with the fact that someone's a different color than you. Now, I do understand also that what I say is not another person's reality. Every home is completely different on how they tackle that, because you also have some people who may teach their kids how to deal with racism from from a space of being hurt. And even though I went through it on my own of, being called other things than my name, I didn't have to reference that to be able to teach my kids, hey, just be mindful, be aware, be respectful of other people, no matter what color, no matter what gender, and just lead with respect first. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important. So tell me, do you have a family creed, motto, or vision statement, something that you all kind of adhere to? I'm hearing a lot of respect.
Yeah,
that's his
core value.
His core value is respect.
Yeah. So and of course I tie that into so much. So I don't think that we have any, which would be cool. I think we need to think about that. But we don't necessarily have one that's just something that's written out. But I am huge on respect. I'm huge on just showing the other person respect regardless. And I think I do a good job of if I get out of line, and then she'll bring me back. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. So if there was anything that I could say, it would probably be that, because when you weave respect into that period, it's just one of those things that regardless of whether you get it, you're going to give respect, and it doesn't matter who the person is. And I think that it doesn't matter if they're outside of your family, if they're in your family, and just kind of teaching them from that way. So I think that that's one of those things that are just kind of they're underlying, even in regular conversations we have with our kids. Because my oldest one, our conversations are more so built around teaching, not like discipline and hey, this, but it's more so like teaching him. And so even in that, my conversations are always respect based first, and then we see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I'm huge on being intentional. So I really feel like even I used to take the kids to school every morning, and on the way to school, I would always tell them to be intentional, like do something nice for someone, help someone, those kind of things. But I think it's just being intentional and respecting other people. It's not necessarily our motto, which like we need one. I think it's really like ingrained in our kids. We have great kids, and they're very respectful. I love teenagers, and we haven't had like the teenager like issues that a lot of people complain about. It's just we have like an open door policy. We talk to our kids. And I would say that would be it.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you lead with respect. That's so important. So tell me, what do you hope your kids will remember about their parents and how they were raised?
I'm big on the boys, of course. I'm huge as far as like just making sure that the boys grow up to be men and really start taking a lot of their responsibilities seriously. Of course, we've all still got a lot of growing to do, but I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm teaching. I always reference, because Braden's two boys, Braden's being the youngest, some of the stuff he gets, some of the stuff he's just not there yet. So when you have that age dynamic from 17 to 7, I focus a lot of my attention on my oldest, and I see it. I almost get a glimpse of what they will see in us when we're having family conversations, and in those conversations, like Father's Day, and Sandy asked the question. She was like, what do you like the most about Father's Day? What do you like the most about Dad on Father's Day? And just the responses I got, to be honest, I didn't know how to respond to them because I wasn't expecting it. And to hear how you're being viewed from every kid, you think you're seen in one way, and then you hear it back and you're like, oh, I didn't know you picked up on that. I would just say, like, again, being that my core value is respect first, I would want them to take that and just apply that to different places in life. I'm a big stickler on telling. So that thing that you do when you tell your kids you can be, they're small babies, and you're like, you can be anything in the world that you want to be, right? And so when you tell them that, what happens when you're not where you want to be in life, but you've been telling them that same thing, and then they finally get old enough to look at you and go, well, you keep talking about this, but you're not there. So why didn't you fulfill that dream that you had? So I'm a big stickler of walking that out in front of them and letting them see, like, the late nights, the early mornings, the doing stuff when I really don't feel like it, and pushing myself to do these different things to provide, or just to get to a place in life that I really want to see, or things that I really want to do. So I think that that's one of the things that I hope that they take, that they have an opportunity now and we have an opportunity to kind of build that and shape them. And then for them to actually see, okay, well, dad did it, mom did it, so it makes it easier for me to do it. And they take that and run with it. They don't just talk about it per se. They actually say, hey, let me actually go out and do this thing that I really want to do. So I'd say that would probably be one of the biggest ones that I
can
would
see
want
that.
to live or see us.
Yeah, I can see that. I think with mine, there's two parts. One with my main thing is the marriage. It's like what a healthy marriage looks like. Not that we're perfect. I still feel like that is so important. I can remember watching my dad and my stepmom, and I'm like, oh, that's what a godly marriage looks like. So that's what I want from them. But as a mom, I just want them to see, not in a guilt way, but just for them to see, because I'm really big on supporting my kids and what they want to do. And so, and again, I'm bring up my growing up, because I think a lot of my parenting is because of things that I went through when I was little. There was a lot of things that I wanted to do and try, but I couldn't because we didn't have the money, you know? And so I want to support my kids, and I want them to be able to do what they want to do without it being, without our finances coming away. What, you know, like, oh, well, we can't because we can't afford that. I want them to see that we made it happen, you know, whatever, we supported them and we made it happen, you know, whatever they wanted to do. I think those are the two main things.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that and put it up on like build like a big board and hang it
Yeah.
up at the house. So.
Yeah. I feel like because this is about interracial relationships, we have to say something about our love being strong, not letting color come between us, you know what I mean? Something like that. And when Ryan and I were talking about our marriage, and this is the part that gets not a little tricky, but it's like when I see him as my husband. Like, I'm super attracted to him. Like, I love him, I respect him, like all of the feels, right? So, and we're just bonded by marriage, and like we don't see our family as being an interracial family, or we don't see our kids as being biracial kids. He's not like, oh, they need to be more black. I'm like, oh, they need to be more white. Like, it just works, if that makes any sense. So it's just like God's first in our life, and so we parent based on biblical perspectives. And I wanted to like give something like being like different and like interracial, you know what I mean, as far as like parenting. But you know, like what our kids are going to remember, I mean, I hope that they will remember that we loved each other regardless of our color, and that, you know, never held us back from anything.
Yeah.
But
again, it just goes back to me. It just goes back to exposure. Exposure is just a huge thing. You can take anybody and you can take them and drop them in a different continent and just let them see something completely different. And then when they come back to where they spend majority of their life, they just see things differently. They're more apt to try to tell somebody else, hey, you need to go see this. You think about when you go out of town and you go to see something new that your friends or even your family has never been to before. When you come back, you're not talking about all of the bad things that happen. You're focused on all of the good things and all of the things that you took away. Your pictures are showcasing all of the good, unless you're a journalist and then you're showing something different, but you're showing all of the good things that happen. So since you're highlighting those things, it's the same thing with our kids. We don't skirt the truth. If there's something that needs to happen or it's something we need to leave them with to teach them, we will. But we really we've said this before, said it amongst ourselves and even with other friends and family, that we let our kids grow up to be who they're going to be. We're not focused on them going in one solid direction. We're giving them the space for them to figure out who they want to be, whether they favor my side or favor mom's side. It doesn't matter. I don't think that, to me, that matters is, again, respect, number one. And number two is just that they actually took the time to get out, see something new and be exposed to something, and just, as we used to say, eat the meat and spit out the bone is what we used to call it. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll title this episode, Eat the Meat and Spit Out the Bone. So good. Well, Sandra and Ryan, this has been absolutely amazing. I have so enjoyed our time together. I think it will be really, really helpful perspective for everybody to, hear the love that you have in your family and how you've raised your kids. And I just think it's inspirational for anybody and everybody. And I just want to thank you for taking this time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on. It's definitely, definitely conversations that need to happen. So I enjoyed it.
And that's what I would actually like encourage people, because what I found really quick, is that that people who are not necessarily comfortable with asking questions, like we've had people, I'll just say some examples. We've had people in our life that were curious about, that had questions for Black people, right? and that they didn't really know, and they were teetering on the line of bigotry maybe.
Yeah.
By becoming our friend, it really opened the door for them to like come to him with questions. Some of the questions were like, whoa, but it opened the door to like for them to like ask him questions, and he answered them, you know what I mean? And so I would just, encourage people just to, to respect others, and to see people as an opportunity to know a different side, or a different world, different culture, and ask questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If my listeners have more questions for you guys or would like to continue the conversation, is there a place where they can reach you?
Yes, I actually have a blog. It's called Optimized Life. There's a place in there to contact me, or actually my Instagram is just actually focuses on us as an interracial family and kind of our life together in our journey. It's called loving_life_with_5 on Instagram, or just Sandra Tanner on Facebook. So yeah.
Perfect.
He's not the social media guy, so
totally. We will link to all those in the show notes, and thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thank you.